Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And people, on the line with us today, we have James B. Flaherty. James is one person you're going to need to reckon with. I'm telling you, we could not have selected the more perfect embodiment of a person of distinction to be with us here today. And once we start to discuss, you're going to understand why. James has written 4 books, but there is so much else that he has done. I mean, he has a screenplay in the works, a Broadway musical, a novel underway. I mean, this man has so much happening right now that we are truly honored to have him here with us as a guest. Now, quickly, the 4 novels that he's written, 2 fiction, 2 nonfiction, that you're going to want to run to his personal website, jamesbflaherty.com, and purchase, as well as Amazon and Barnes & Noble, of course. One is called Clear, Wife, Mother, Mistress, Murderer. The next is Embrace Your Age. You can be better than ever. Next, we have Dear Old Friends, Stay Young, Stop Thinking Old, and Love Your Life Every Day, followed by The Role of a Lifetime. All 4 of which are available for purchase through his website, as well as Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. You're going to want to head on over there and pick up your copies. And before we go any further, I do want to take this opportunity and point out that Jim was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best advertising firms in the business. And you already know, I'm talking about Quipper Prints. So listen to me. If you're a writer out there, you've written a book, but you find yourself at a crossroads because now you need help moving it. Do yourself a favor and contact Quipper Prints. They're one of the best in the business to do it. And people, this is what they specialize in. Their fantastic team is standing by to assist you. Head on over to quipperprints.com today and gather all of the ways that they're going to help maximize your creative endeavors. And listen, as I stated, Jim is a force to be reckoned with. It is a true delight to have him here on the network. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, not only his books today, but do me a favor. Sit back, strap in, and get ready for a fantastic journey, because that's exactly what we have in store for you today. Jim, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest with us. How you doing, man?
Happy to be here, Benji.
Well, listen, we are happy to have you.
I like the dynamic and intelligent part. That was good, too, in the introduction.
Jim, a lie was not spoken, man. We speak nothing but the truth here. We are delighted to have you, man. I think, as I mentioned in my opening, you truly are a force, man. What you've been able to accomplish and what you are still accomplishing and still working on is absolutely inspiring. So, again, thank you for being a guest. And before we go into anything in particular, let's start off with learning about your background, Jim. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, please.
Okay. I come from a different planet than today's kids. I was born and raised in Coral Gables, Florida, before air conditioning. I may as well get my age out of the way. And 2 months from tomorrow, I will be 88 years old. Going on 58, because I absolutely have no sense that, or any plans for waking up on the wrong side of the grass anytime soon. I'm completely healthy and completely alive and work every day. Get up early in the morning, have all fruit for breakfast, go down to my pool. I have a pool in my house. And exercise, serious exercise for 30 minutes, then come upstairs, shower, and change for the day, and then go to work. It's a good life, and I love it. I think the longer you can keep a purpose in mind, a goal in your life, the longer you live, and the happier you live. I wake up with a smile every day because I know I've got something to look forward to, something to do.
Absolutely.
So, what else do you want to know? I grew up in Florida. I went to University of Florida 2 years and Michigan State University for my last 2 years to get a degree in communications, which back then only 2 schools in America offered communications. Now every roadside garage and chapel offers it as a major. But back then, I went to Michigan State. I had a scholarship because I was a concert bassoonist. I played clarinet, cello, and bassoon. But came to New York in 1957. Got a job. I took home $200 a month after taxes.
Wow.
And it didn't bother me. When you're young, you can do those things.
Yeah.
And it was good for me. I remember every day being excited with the fact that I was living in New York City and working and earning my own living, not much of a living, but it was fine. And life went on from there. I went to the Army the next year. I met and got married. My ex-wife, my late wife, must have been out of her mind. She married me when I was earning $80 a month. And like most young people back then, because that was built into us, that's what you did. You would go through school, you would get a job, you'd meet the boy or girl of your dreams, get married, and have children.
Yeah.
Okay, and we had children back then. When I was 25 and 27, my two daughters were born. And life was good. And I crawled up the ladder from below the bottom of the ladder and ended up in a corner office in Manhattan as an advertising creative director. Mm-hmm. And most of it was all in New York City, except once I accepted a job and moved my family when the kids were only 9 and 11. We moved 6,500 miles to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and lived for 4 years in Spanish. Still speak that wonderful language. And was there. BA was a fascinating city, kind of Spanish-speaking Europe. But I was also there at a time when Barnum and Bailey would have felt right at home. Yeah. Perón returned, and the Argentines re-elected him as president. So it was kind of circus time, but it was interesting. Other than that, after all my years in advertising, in my late 40s, with not really having a plan to do this, and I was very happy with my life as a creative director, I dropped out of advertising and up here in the boonies, 2 hours north of Manhattan, I had found an abandoned stack of stone full of raccoon droppings, and it was boarded up, no heat, plumbing, electric, no nothing. And I reinvented it and brought it back to life and opened it as a country inn conference center. And I owned that wonderful creation named Troutbeck for 30 years. And the first 20 years, I ran it personally, 70 hours a week. I was the innkeeper, and I built it as a business, and it did extremely well. And life was good. Mm-hmm. There were villas in Acapulco and international travel and an interesting life full of interesting people. And I'm very happy to say I have 2 lovely daughters and 4 handsome millennial grandsons, 1 in Brooklyn, 1 in Japan, 2 in England. We are an international family.
There you go. There you go.
Life is interesting.
Jim, this is incredible, man. I'm loving what I'm hearing, and this is fantastic. I think with all of your traveling with your family, first and foremost, congratulations on what sounds like a beautiful family that you've surrounded yourself with, and nothing but continued success to you and your loved ones. But there is so much happening here, and this is fantastic. But do me a favor here, Jim, connect the dots for me, because I didn't hear writing in any of that. So where does the love and the inspiration for writing come from?
Come on, Benji, back up. I started as a copywriter. That's what my job was. I was a plain old regular copywriter earning nothing.
Well, there you go.
I remember when I was earning $6,500 a year. I remember times were different. When I was earning $16,000 a year, we bought a house in a very beautiful village in Westchester County, right outside of New York. Not a grand, glorious house, but a very nice house that we lived in for many, 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 many years. And it was fine. It was wonderful. And you work your way up, and you learn to live within your own income bracket, which we did, and it was perfectly all right.
Yeah.
But I was always a writer, even whether you called me a creative director or not. My first job in life was to write. And also being an entrepreneur, when I opened a country inn conference center, I wonder how in the hell do people start businesses if they're not writers? There was so much writing, brochures to do, and letters to convince people that this is the place to come for conferences, for meetings, for weekends, for weddings. I've been married 216 times. And it was fine. I loved putting on weddings. Even put on my daughter's weddings, which is kind of funny to have daddy plan your weddings. Yeah, I started writing when I finally did not have to do the 70-hour week at the inn anymore, that it was perfectly fine and working on its own. And we had a beautiful villa in Acapulco, and I used to use my winters down there to start writing. I wrote the first novel about 6 or 7 years ago, and then after that, the second novel, Claire, the one you mentioned. And then in more recent years, the nonfiction. There were a few years where I didn't write when I was taking care of my partner who had dementia. And so for 3 years, I was nothing but a caregiver, because that's all you can do when you're being a caregiver. You kind of drop out of a functioning life and say, this is who I am and what I do.
Yeah.
But now I'm back to full-time writing, and it's wonderful. I'm very happy about it.
Well, there you have it.
Does that help?
Of course. Like I said, I was, of course, just being facetious and adding some levity there, but I did want to connect those dots to your creative writing in your novels. So thank you very much for explaining that. Now, sticking with inspiration here, Jim, of course, writing was part of your background. And this was something that you would do, really what sounds like initially started more so as a hobby, right? After your career, and the inn was, as you stated, running on its own in a pretty well-oiled machine. Well, yeah, I never considered it a hobby, right? Writing, it's funny, Benji, I can remember friends saying, "Oh, Jesus, Flaherty, you don't really work. I mean, you're just a writer." And I said, yes, that's so easy. I had a sign up over my desk in New York that said, writing is easy. You just stare at a blank piece of paper until drops of blood appear on your forehead. Writing is not easy. Everything has to function. It's the hardest, I think it's the hardest non-physical job in the world. You can't be tired or hungover or bored or boring. You can't be turned off intellectually or mentally to write. Mm-hmm. And if you're writing fiction, you have to become other people. You walk in their shoes, you speak their vocabulary, you have their accent, their point of view. It's very, very interesting. I found an interesting shift to go from fiction to nonfiction, where you're writing your point of view. The two books, Dear Old Friends and Embrace Your Age, are me having a heart-to-heart chat with a friend saying, I don't like what you're doing to yourself. You're thinking old, and therefore you're acting old. You're retreating from life. I want you to face life with a smile, with a purpose. I'm a big believer in that, and I do a lot of public speaking along that line. By the way, along that same line, I'm very happy to say that I've been invited to do a TEDx talk in October. So I'm very excited about that. Absolutely.
And I'm going to talk about that very subject, about there are 8 million depressed seniors in this country, and how we as individuals can help them by giving them realistic options. I mean, right now I have, because I have many friends in their 80s. I have 2 friends. I've talked them into painting lessons, which they're loving. I have another friend taking Spanish lessons, and this one thrills me. I have one friend who said, I only have one real regret in life, Jim. I never got a college degree. And I said, so what's stopping you? She's gone back to college. She's 83 years old. She came to see me the other day, and she said, it's so terrific, Jim. When I first went into classes, the kids looked at me like I was Grandma Moses reincarnated. She said, now they invite me to the library to study with them. They ask my advice for dating. And then she twirled around. She said, do you like my outfit? My girlfriends took me to the Gap. I gotta tell you, Benji, it really it thrills me to see that. It thrills me that I have 4 or 5 different friends who were sitting around getting bored to death with themselves, binging out on too much TV traumas and dramas, who are now living again because life isn't over.
Right. You know, Jim, getting back to your writing process, 'cause I do want to take this opportunity and be able to pay it forward to any new writers out there listening in. Now, you are someone that has written fiction as well as nonfiction. So I want to ask, how do you handle self-doubt and maintain the confidence in your writing abilities when you're putting your work together?
That's a good question, a hard question. One of the things when you're writing, I've always told many, many people, especially if I'm handling people in a writing class. I did teach writing for a while in New York as a public service. It wasn't my profession. I said, whatever you write, first of all, read it out loud, because reading it to yourself, your eye won't always see what your brain hears. It's interesting. You can read something that you've written and you might have said Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, but may not see it when you're just reading it to yourself. But when you read it out loud, you also hear if something sounds stupid or could be better. And always when you're writing something, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, always have a few what we call beta readers around you, people whom you know and respect, or just friends who love you, and say, I want you to read it, but I want to hear an honest feedback. Does it mean anything to you? Do you care about it? You know, when I wrote one chapter of the new novel I'm working on, I sent it to 10 people and said, do you care? Do you want to know what's going to happen next? Are you still with it? Or are you already bored? I know when I'm looking online at books for sale, I get 3 or 4 blogs a day of those. I will read the first page of most of those books, and if the first page doesn't do something to me, I won't buy it.
Right.
They can't grab you right then if there aren't words that make you say, ooh, I want to know where she is going or where he is going or what's going to happen. They've created something there. They've created an atmosphere or an attitude that I want to be part of it. So, yeah, writing is not easy. And also people say, what do you do with writer's block? If I'm writing and I'm at a point in the story and I'm looking at it, not positive of my next step, I play a game called What If? And I'll sit there for 30 minutes and say, what if David marries Julie? What if Harry takes a plane ride and is killed? What if so-and-so does something? And do a lot of what if. And out of that line, I'll always find 4 or 5 different directions that give me a good idea of where to go next.
Mm-hmm. You know, Jim, next question here. Let's dive down the rabbit hole a little, okay? And focusing on your two fictional narratives and Dealer's Choice, right? Because no one knows them as well as you. Now, people, just so you are aware, the 2 fictional narratives that he has, the 4 of the books, of course, just to mention again, Claire, wife, mother, mistress, murderer. That's the fiction. Embrace Your Age is nonfiction. Dear Old Friends, nonfiction. And then The Role of a Lifetime is the other fictional narrative. Right. Now, Jim, again, Dealer's Choice for you, either Clear or The Role of a Lifetime. But if you could enter the world of the book that you've created, which page would you land on and why?
probably of those two novels, I would be more at home in Claire's world, the world of my heroine. Well, I'm going to back up for a minute. What was interesting about writing both books, I'd started out with a male protagonist, the first book, which was The Role of a Lifetime. And as I was writing, he kind of bored me. I don't know. I never got into his head or vice versa. And one of the characters was much more interesting. Now, this could be because basically I like women more than men. Some of my best friends are women. I think women in the long run perhaps are more intelligent than men.
Yeah.
And they have more feeling about things and more sensitive to things. At any rate, I changed it, and I was writing about a woman. Okay, I had to be her in her head, and it became very, very interesting. Claire was a woman that I created from a world that I understood. The heroine of the other book came from a world I didn't really understand, but it's about a woman who kind of reinvents herself.
Right.
So it's an interesting story. Claire was, as I wrote about it on one blurb, was, in today's world, there are many wildly successful women. Imagine how much more difficult it was for them to shoulder all the requirements of being, 1, a wife, 2, a mother, 3, a human in her own right, and then on top of it, a successful executive. In this case, I had Claire as being a very successful stockbroker. It was actually the character was based on a woman I know. The story wasn't hers, but the actual individual was an extraordinarily beautiful woman with brains and style, and I used her as the basis so I could write to her. That's also very helpful, to have someone in your head when you're writing about a character. They become more real to you.
Yeah.
They're alive to you because you can see them, right? So I wrote about Claire. I said, Claire O'Brady Glickman had it all: beauty, brains, money, moxie. Men adored her and wished they could have her. Women admired her and wished they could hate her. She was, as they say, to die for, and then someone did. Okay, in writing the story, I created a killing and a court case. It's fiction. I was having fun. It's a book. Is it War and Peace? No. Is it the Old Testament? No. It's fiction. It's a good book to take away for a weekend on the beach, and I meant it to be that. It would also make a wonderful TV series or feature film. I would like to do that with it. It would work very well for that.
Absolutely.
And what I liked about both novels is they both have a basis, which is something I've always admired. They have the basis of the brilliance of women's friendships with women. Women are much, much better than men about creating a circle of friends to help them to make the good times better and the bad times bearable. Men are too full of moi most of the time. They're just too full of themselves to open themselves to that kind of relationship. Both books are a reflection of women's friendships with women.
Jim, and as we close out here, I know you were talking about that you would want Claire to be written or developed into a screenplay, and you're working on a screenplay, as well as your TEDx talk coming up. I mean, you have so much happening. Talk to our listening audience about what's upcoming for you so we know what to look out for.
Well, the TEDx, when you do a TEDx talk, you don't know when they are going to put it on YouTube.
Right.
That depends on the organizers of the TEDx talk. I'm going to give the TEDx talk in October out in the state of Washington. So I'm going to fly myself to Seattle and then spend a few days out there, which will be very interesting because I live in New York State. I live a couple of hours north of Manhattan. That will be good. I am looking and talking to different people about finding a good literary agent, because in the world we live in, it's practically impossible to get something produced unless you have a known literary agent handling your work, or you are introduced. Oh, Meryl Streep is my good friend, so she introduces me to somebody. Then they will listen to you. But it doesn't matter how successful you are or have been in your life, or how full of life you are, or how good your product is. It's still tough to get it in the right pair of hands. I mean, I've written a TV series that I believe could run forever. I mean, please understand, there are a lot of writers, they're wonderful young budding writers, and they're writing for artistic release. I'm commercial. I'm writing something that I think can sell and run.
Yeah.
I'm really not writing things just to play with myself and say, oh, I've got to get this off my soul. That's a load of crap. I'm not doing that. I'm writing something. I've written a TV series that I think would be unlike any TV series that anybody's ever seen, and it's all involved with actors, of which there are a number of them, all actors over the age of 75. And you'll notice there's more and more of those in movies. Great actresses like Joan Fonda, and Lily Tomlin, and what was her name? Who played Murphy Brown? She's wonderful. But some terrific, terrific actresses. And it's called The Seniors, and the tagline for it is Old Enough to Know Better. And I know in the world we live in, where the demographics are becoming older and older, that would be a very successful show. And it wouldn't be aimed at just 70 and 80-year-olds. It's aimed at the general population. I always like, for example, one of the best things ever written for TV was The West Wing. And it certainly wasn't all political. It was the story of all the people. And it didn't all take place in the Oval Office. It would drop in there now and then, but it was basically a story about human beings and living their life. And my TV series would be that as well. So I would like that to come to life. Mm-hmm. The screenplay I'm working on is a dark comedy, which would be, again, a very interesting, offbeat screenplay. But I'll never get it in the right hands until an agent says, can go to a producer they know and say, I have a client that I think his work is worthwhile, worth your looking at. Trust me. That's the way life is.
Right.
But that's all right.
People, you know what I'm taking from all of that? There's a lot happening. Okay, there is a lot to look out for. You know where you got to go. Okay, if you want to pick up the books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, his personal website, jamesbflaherty.com. Get lost in the 4 books that he's created. Be on the lookout because, as he's mentioned, the TEDx Talk, he's going to be doing it pretty soon, but, it'll be up on YouTube, but check back in frequently. Of course, I'm sure he'll have mention of it on the website, so you got to check back in frequently to get lost in everything that he has going on, because there is so much happening. Jim, this has been a true pleasure, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji. I've enjoyed it very much.